Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're doing e-business and e-marketing or digital marketing, and we're going to define what we mean by the business strategy in terms of e-marketing and e-business, sell and buy side of digital strategy, and the strategic options. So in completion of this, we should be able to follow an appropriate strategy process model for digital business and apply tools to generate and select digital business strategies. And we should also be able to outline alternative strategy approaches to achieve digital business. So, how does digital business strategy differ from traditional business strategy? And how should we integrate the digital business strategy with existing business and information system strategy? Also, how should we evaluate our investment priorities and returns from? So if we look at Michael Porter on the internet, he says that the key question is not whether to deploy internet technology. Companies have no choice if they want to stay competitive, but how to deploy it. So, Michael Porter is saying, you have no choice. If you really want to be competitive, you have to deploy it. But the problem with most large organizations is that if they're too big, it's a bit like a oil tanker in the ocean. An oil tanker in the ocean is so huge sometimes, an organization is so big, it's very difficult to turn and to change things in the sea. So, it's a question of how people implement things. If you look at, Lidl doesn't have an online store, and you have to say to yourselves, well, during the crisis, how much sales have they lost, or, and their competitors, how much sales have their competitors capitalized on? Likewise, if you look at companies like Primark do not have an online, store where consumers can buy, their products from them, and during a lockdown, which we are still in, when being in tier 4 at this precise moment in time, then you have to say to yourself, how many sales opportunities are they losing? So, I would agree with Michael Porter in terms of, what he says. In order to remain competitive, it's a question of not, whether or not to deploy internet technology, but it's a question of, how to deploy it. So, alternative definitions of strategy. What is strategy? So, this defines how we meet our objectives. This sets allocation of resources to meet the goals. Selects preferred strategic options to compete within a marketplace. Provides a long-term plan for the development of the organization. So, we're talking about the corporate strategy. And the corporate strategy in terms of e-business and e-marketing, is to say that yes, we need to do these things, but how are we going to do it, and what is the strategy behind it in terms of the corporate strategy, and then business unit strategies, regional strategies, and functional strategies. So the ones in blue will be the typical digital business planning. So we need to look at the sales side and the buy side of e-commerce strategy, or e-marketing CRM strategy. So sales side e-commerce is a channel strategy. Objectives for online contribution percentage should drive our strategy. Our e-commerce strategy defines how we should hit our channel leads and sales targets, acquisition, conversion, retention, service, profitability, and this all links into what we looked at before in terms of your social media campaign. And social media, in terms of one of the communication mix, links into how you acquire, convert, retention, service, and profitability in terms of the conversion rates, in terms of the cost per thousand, in terms of the number of impacts, the cost per thousand impacts, and then the conversion rates of those impacts that lead to lead generations, and then a percentage of to conversion from lead generation to sales. Also, communicate benefits of using the channel, prioritize products available through the channel, prioritize audience targeted through the channel, and select partners for this channel. So, in addition to this, in terms of the sales side, you need to think about the channel strategy, which thrives on differentials, how you differentiate yourself from your competitors. And this is what it's all about. So when you're thinking about your sales side, how are you different from your competitors? But, you need to manage the channel integration. So let's look at the buy side of e-commerce strategy, or the supply chain management strategy, because as we know that you need the sell side in terms of how you're selling it, converting the number of impacts, cost per thousand impacts, the conversion rate, conversion percentage to sales, but you also need to make sure that you have your supply chains in place to ensure that you are meeting the customer's needs, so that you are supplying what they want when they want it. But at the same time, you don't want to hold too much stocks, because holding too much stocks is going to incur the company more costs. So it's a balancing act. So the buy side of e-commerce strategy is about maximizing operational efficiencies while improving customer service quality. The operational efficiencies in terms of KPIs, key performance indicators, should drive the strategy. The buy side of e-commerce strategy defines how we should automate the internal processes, link internal resource management systems with external purchasing systems, prioritize suppliers, partners collaborating using this channel. Again, the supply chain is so important. Who are the main suppliers, and how long do they take to deliver? Where are they actually based? So again, going back, linking the resource management systems, with external purchasing systems to make sure if we can automate it. But then, even in automation is dependent upon some human input in terms of the numbers that are required. Prioritize applications of SCM, create a roadmap. And this also involves, the selection of a. So if we look at the corporate strategy here, the overall aims and objectives, we need to take into consideration the constraints and the opportunities, and then which leads into the e-business strategy. And then on the e-business strategy, that will link into SCM strategy and the customer relationship management marketing strategy. And these will link into the information system strategy in terms of how these are implemented, what systems, what processes are required. And all this needs to be thought about before you go in and launch and sell your product. You need to be thinking about how you're going to capture, what systems are you going to use, how you're going to manipulate the data. So what happens, where there is no digital business strategy? You're going to find missed opportunities for additional sales on the sell side, and more efficient purchasing on the buy side. You might actually fall behind competitors in delivering online services, and it may be difficult to catch up once you see that they're competing better against you. For example, Tesco, Dell. There may be a poor customer experience, from poorly integrated channels. So we can see how BA communicates its online value proposition. And if you look at this, you can see that click in here for your flight, save time at the airport and checking your flights at ba.com. Choose the best available seats from our interactive seating plan, and print your boarding pass before you've even packed your suitcase. Check in now. So again, most airlines are doing this now, and they allow you to book in beforehand. They allow you to have an app on your phone. They allow you to scan your phone, so you can do it all on your mobile with the app if you want. But it allows you to do this efficiently. Make sure you've got your boarding pass, and even at a certain time to be able to select what seat numbers you're going to sit. So again, this adds to the value proposition for BA. When we look at the overall strategic position, we're saying to ourselves, again, you've got your vision, mission, aims and objectives, And then you have your strategic analysis in terms of your situation analysis. Your situation analysis being your, the external environment, the PESTEL analysis, and then the SWOT analysis for the internal. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As strengths and weaknesses being internal to the business, and opportunities and threats being external to the business, and your external environment in terms of your PESTEL, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. And then you have your strategic objectives, but normally your strategic objectives are actually ahead before your strategic analysis in terms of your vision and your mission and your objectives. Because your vision basically is what you want to be, where you see things going and what you're trying to sell and how you want to operate. And then you have your strategic definition in terms of operation generation, option evaluation, option generation, and option selection, which leads into the implementation. Implementation in terms of planning, execution, and control. And then we have, like events in terms of building knowledge and capability. This is the dynamic digital business strategy model. And here, we have the knowledge building and capability evaluation, and then linked to your digital business design, business goals, linked to your digital business blueprint, planning and application, linked to your application development and deployment. And again, which gives you, on the outside, the key insights, the key objectives, the priorities, and the feedback, which goes back around. And so you're continually changing and upgrading and updating this dynamic digital business strategy. So you have, again, a strategic analysis. We talked about this earlier. External environment, internal environment. The external environment in terms of PESTEL, social, legal, ethical, economic, political, technological. And then you have, in your internal, you have your resources, your portfolio analysis, SWOT analysis, demand analysis, and competitor analysis, which links into your digital business specific techniques, stage models of digital business development, and assessing sell side and the buy side and the value network opportunities and threats. So again, if we look here in terms of Chaffee 2015, they talk about different stages in terms of services available, organizational scope, transformation, and strategy. In terms of the web presence, e-commerce, integrated e-commerce, and digital business. So we just took the services available in terms of the brochureware or interaction with product catalogs and customer service, linking into the e-commerce side, the e-commerce, transactional e-commerce, or buy side or sell side. Integrated e-commerce in terms of the buy and sell side, integrated with enterprise resource planning or legacy systems, personalization of services. And digital business, full integration between all internal organizational processes and elements of the value network. And we're talking about the value network. We're talking about customers getting what they want when they paid for it and when the organization says that they're going to deliver it. But then obviously that's going to affect your supply chains, and it's going to affect what products you have in stock at the time that the sale is actually made. And that will depend upon your holding strategy in terms of how long, and how much stock you will hold in order to supply the demand. So again, all these systems and processes needs to be in place when we talk about the buy side and the sell side. The buy side in terms of buying the supplies and having that constant flow in terms of the stock coming into your system. We're talking about the sell side in terms of customer relationship management systems. So all of this needs to be integrated, leading you from your web presence, your e-commerce, your integrated e-commerce, and your digital business, all the way through adding value to the supply chain and the value chain across the whole the different elements. So if we look here in terms of future strategic importance of information systems and current strategic importance of information systems, for me, information systems are extremely important for any organization. And in the previous slides, we've looked at, monitoring and, evaluating the value of your activities. And if you don't have information systems, you're not going to be able to monitor and evaluate what you're doing, and therefore allocate future resources to a specific area, because what is it going to be based on? You can't just be based on your own opinion. It needs to be based on facts, figures and stats. So you have high potential, electronic catalog, e-commerce system, customer intelligence and CRM systems, low future and low current in terms of HR systems and finance systems. And you have the potential of high potential and high future and high now in terms of strategic attacks, procurement systems, stock control systems and distribution systems. And you may have, future maybe low, but current information systems now might be high in terms of production line systems, key operational systems. So if we look at, again, the SWOT analysis in terms of the organization, the strengths, weaknesses and the opportunities and threats, and we know that the strengths and weaknesses are internal to the business and the opportunities and threats are external to the business, then we're saying that we have SO strategies, leverage strengths to maximize opportunities, attacking strategies for the strengths and opportunities, and for the weaknesses and opportunities we have like building strengths for attacking strategies later on. So counter weaknesses through exploiting the opportunities. And likewise we have defensive strategies, ST strategies, with the strengths and threats in terms of leverage strengths to minimize the threats. And then also we have the build strengths for defensive strategy, which is counter weaknesses and threats. So here's an individual activity here, for one of the industries below. Assess how the internet has changed the competitive forces. For example, has it increased or decreased power of suppliers and customers? Industries such as banking, supermarkets, oil industry and rail industry. So if we look here at the internal capability incentives and the external forces incentives, we can see there are various strategies here again. Do we want a market driving strategy? You have market driven strategies in terms of keeping pace with market threats and opportunities, or you could adopt for the status quo, don't bother. And you also have capability building in terms of build for transaction to electronic e-commerce. So if we look at the Carnegie Mellon software development maturity process, we can see that this development has 5 different stages, which is the 5 different levels: initial level, level 1, repeatable level, level 2, defined, level 3, managed, level 4, and the optimized, level 5. And the Atos Consulting e-business capability framework. So if we're looking at level 1, the initial level, that we're talking about e-business unplanned. E-business, initiatives are ad hoc, one-off, unplanned, and even chaotic. The organization lacks the capability to meet commitments consistently. Level 2, e-business aware. Basic e-commerce processes established, necessary to repeat earlier successes, but not yet part of the planning process. The focus is on developing the capabilities of the organization. Level 3, defined. The e-business here is enabled. Central e-business strategy and planning processes towards a centralized model. Level 4, managed. E-business is integrated. Here, the e-business is part of a departmental and business unit planning. Detailed performance measures of e-business processes and applications collected and used for control. And then level 5, optimized. Extended enterprise. Here, the e-business, the core part of the corporate strategy, with continuous evaluation of digital business improvements, enabled for quantitative feedback, piloting innovative ideas and technologies. So here we can see the buy side threats and the sell side threats. On the buy side threats, we've got the supplier threats and the intermediary threats. And the sell side threats, we've got the intermediary threats and the customer threats. And linking into the organization, you have, new digital products, new entrants, new business models. And on the outside of that, you've got kind of like competitive threats from your competitors. But remember that competitive threats can be, you could use Porter's 5 force model in terms of the different elements within that model. So strategic objectives again, we've looked at the vision and the mission, and then the vision and the mission links into the objectives, and the objectives achieve your vision and mission. So the vision might be to, replace or complement, to extent of adaptability needed. Objectives might be smart objectives, specific, measurable, attainable, reach, and time specific. Online revenue contribution, customer value targets, and balanced scorecards. Objectives to actually achieve your, mission and vision. And then this will link into your e-business specific techniques. Vision about capability to change, to reinvent. Online revenue contribution, and to change your business and your e-business and so on and so forth is a very difficult thing to do, and it requires resources. It requires a strategy. Mentioned before in the previous slides that if you think about Direct Line is still in a lot of their processes still using Unix based information systems. And now they're trying to change these systems. Unix-based information systems I was using over 25 years ago. 25 years ago in Metro Products. So Unix systems are very, very old, outdated systems. And companies need to reinvest and to reinvent and to adapt and to change and to upgrade. But all of this requires, in large organizations, huge sums of investment, and it requires a strategy. So, but I think that these systems should be reviewed on a continuous basis to update and keep up with competition. If we look at an evaluation tool, relating information to business value, an organization's use of information on each axis can be assessed. So if we look at the different axes in terms of, adding value, going vertically, adding value at the top and creating new reality, and then on a horizontal axis we've got managing risks, and on the right hand side we've got reducing costs. So these things need to be considered in terms of adding value in terms of customers and markets, creating new reality in terms of new products, new services, new business ideas, and these need to be done, to be updated to make sure that you're not standing still, and also to give you a competitive edge as well. Reducing costs in terms of transactions and processes, and managing risks in terms of the market, the financial side, the legal side, operational risks as well. So here we can see in terms of e-channel and traditional channels. E-channels are obviously done, online, traditional channels offline, but also online as well, because people may come into your stores but then may not buy in the store. They might actually see the product in the store, ask all the information, and then go home and then buy it online. So it can be offline and online. So we think about the reach in terms of 1 million customers for both e-channel and traditional channels. And then we take the next one down, which is respondents from the channel in terms of 100,000 each. And the offline inbound inquiries were 110,000. Then we can see that the if the conversion to lead to efficiency was 10% in terms of the e-channel, 10% of the 100,000, plus the drive to traditional, which was 1% from the traditional, and 10% from the conversion to lead, which is 11%. So 11% of 100,000 is 11,100, which is online leads. And then the conversion to sale efficiency, 20% of those 11,100, which leads you to outcomes from the channel, which is 2,355 online sales. And likewise, if we look at the traditional channel, we've got 110,000 from the respondents from the channel. If we expect a 20% conversion to lead efficiency, that leads to 27,000 lead generated from the channel. And then conversion to sale efficiency is 40%. Total online sales leads to 11,910. So here we look at again a matrix table in terms of purchase and research. Mobile buyer in terms of the online to online in terms of research and purchase is 22%. If we look at the mobile buyer in terms of online to offline is 37%, and which suggests that people go in and do some more research to find out what they're looking for. So this could also be dependent upon the type of purchase as well. If it's limited problem solving, routine problem solving, extended problem solving. And then you have the research offline purchase, which is 9%, and the research offline to offline purchases, which is 32%. So the offline purchases in terms of research and purchases are still very, very high in terms of 32%, but research online to offline is 37%, still very higher than the online to online. So if we look at your goals, we can say to ourselves, well, you're going to need specific goals. And then what are those strategies to achieve those goals? And what are your KPIs? What are your key performance indicators? So the goals could be to develop revenue from new geographical markets. And then the strategies could be to create e-commerce facility, to standard products and assign agents to those markets. And the key performance indicators could be to achieve combined revenue of 1 million by the end of the year, online revenue contribution by 70%. Or we could have another goal saying, increase revenue from smaller scale purchases from retailers. Strategies to achieve that goal could be to create e-commerce facility for standard products. And the KPI would be to increase sales from retailers from 15 to 25% in total by year 2, online revenue contribution to 30%. And you see, you have your goal, and this is what you need to detail. You need your goal, you need your strategy to achieve the goal, and you need the key performance indicators to say that whether or not you've met that goal. Because otherwise, how will you be able to measure your goals in terms of if you've achieved them? So it's important that when you're doing your goals, you can't just have your goals. You need your goals, and then you need your strategy to achieve those goals, and then you need your KPIs, your key performance indicators, which determine basically at the end of that time period whether or not you met your goals or not. So here we can see a graph in terms of product suitability, in terms of opportunity and risk, and a market adoption in terms of prosperity for online purchases. And we've got from low to high, and from low to high in terms of the horizontal lines. And again, if we look at the different types of companies, we can see in terms of market adoption, prosperity, for online purchases in traditional books, CDs is very, very high. But again, the opportunities and the risks are high. Digital books, air tickets, magazine publishers are very high. But on the lower side, you've got professional services, consultancy services, chemical manufacturers, and engineering company, high cost, low volume in terms of product suitability and adoption for online sales. So again, it may depend upon the type of business that you're in and the type of market that you're in, which will depend upon whether or not you adopt an online strategy or not. So number 3, we've got 3 strategy definition, and the strategy definition, and then you have the option generation, option evaluation, and the option selection, which will link into 8 key business strategic decisions. Decision 1 to 8. 1, e-business channel priorities. 2, market and product development. 3. Positioning and differentiation strategies. 4. Business and revenue models. 5. Marketplace restructuring. 6. Supply chain management capabilities. 7. Internal knowledge management capabilities. And 8. Organization resourcing and capabilities. So again, we've looked at this, resourcing, viability, organization, value to fit, business generated, value generated 0 to 50, customer value generated 0 to 20, alignment of business strategy 0 to 10, and they go, how are you prioritizing this? How are you kind of determining what your strategy is? Okay, on the vertical side, you have the resource viability in terms of internal people resource, cost time 0 to 20, putting a scale. Agency resource, cost of time 0 to 20. Setup costs, technical feasibility 0 to 20. Ongoing costs 0 to 20, and business and implementation 0 to 20. Again, giving a score to each of these to see where you fit on both the vertical and the horizontal side, in terms of the horizontal in terms of the organizational value and fit, which would then lead into medium priority in terms of reducing scope or defer. It could be a high priority in terms of implement, go ahead, do it. It could be implement, medium priority, reduce scope or defer. Or it could be a low priority, don't implement or defer. So again, you could value this out. But again, these might be subjective in terms of the figures that you put within each of these. But if you can statistically allocate a value to these, then it would allow you to have a better fit to decide in terms of a strategy, in terms of what you should do. If it's a high priority, medium priority, low priority, or a medium priority. So again, we look at this graph here, and we've got percentage of online revenue contribution on the horizontal axis, and the vertical axis we've got change required. If we look through the stages in 1, 2 and 3, we can see bricks and mortar, where we have the information only, and then on stage 2 we've got the bricks and clicks, a mix of offline transactions and customer service, and then 3 clicks, all transactions and customer service online. So again, percentage of revenue contribution and the change required. So if we look at this strategic matrix here, you have different options in terms of the market growth and the product growth. And these different strategies, we've looked at, Porter's, different models from Porter's in terms of the Ansoff model and so on and so forth, very similar in terms of market development strategies, using internet for targeting, new geographical markets, new customer segments. So we're talking about new markets for existing products. Or are we talking about market penetration strategies, to increase market share growth, compete more effectively online, to improve customer loyalty, to migrate existing customers online and add value to existing products and services and brand, to have customer value improvement, increase customer profitability by decreasing the cost and serve to increase purchase or usage frequency and quantity. So here we're talking about existing products to existing markets. Or is there a strategy of diversification? Diversification for new products into new markets. And here we're talking about diversification into related businesses, diversification into unrelated businesses, and upstream integration with suppliers, or downstream integration with intermediaries. So we're talking about vertical integration, upstream or downstream, or horizontal integration to your left or to your right. Here we're also talking about new products to existing markets in terms of product development strategies. Use the internet for adding value to existing products, developing digital products, new delivery, usage models, changing payment models, subscription, per use, bundling, and increase the product range in terms of, especially for e-retailers. So again, what is your strategy going to be? Is it going to be a market development strategy, market penetration strategy, diversification, or product development strategies? Or are you going to have 2 of these, or 3 of these, or you're going to have all of these strategies? So what is your overall strategy? What is it that you want to achieve? Remembering that you only have so much money in the bank, you only have so much resources to deploy. So it's a question of prioritizing what you want to do and how fast you want to get there. So strategy implementation in terms of planning, execution and control, which links into the implementation stages in terms of the supply chain management strategies, your digital marketing strategies, planning, scheduling and change management, digital business analysis and design, and the implementation and the maintenance and control. So what do we cover today? So today we have covered, defining strategy, looking at what Michael Porter discussed and talked about, looking at the sell side and the buy side of the strategy, and reviewing the different strategic options depending upon your mission, visions, aims and objectives, and it really depends on how fast you want to get to where you want to get to. Remembering that there is so much you need to do and to implement within your business, but only so many resources to do that. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.